Hello there and welcome to Shuttlebay for episode 13. This time we talk about the episode Flashback and we discuss who has the worst hair in Star Trek.
Is Brush joining us tonight? Because I know last week was Thanksgiving, wasn't it?
I've got no idea. Let's give him a wave though. Hello, Brush.
Hi, Brush.
You are missed. The last time we messaged, he asked what the topic of conversation was, and I says, "Well, we're going to do worst hairstyles in Star Trek." And I think it's just that. Oh, okay, I'm not joining that. One thing we said we were going to do, because if you remember last week and the week before, we covered, we ranked our films and we did Carbon Creek. But what we did say was we can't really put together any sort of ranking top three based on all our favourite films without Patch's input. So, Patches, if you want to run through your film rankings.
No problem.
Good evening.
I'll just let Chris know what's happening in case he wonders what's going on. Oh, he's gone.
He saw me and f***ed off.
He's back.
Hello again.
Hello, Chris. Right, I'll start with the one I like the most, and I'll run through because I'll talk about those the most, and then I'll go through to the ones I like the least. And I'll just give you a brief reason for why I don't like them as much. The top of the list for me is the motion picture. Yeah, I see Dan going mad there. So I'll give you my reasons. Let's have a look at the time that film come out, right? 1979. They're not strong sci-fi films coming out at that point in time. They're not. To contend with, you got the likes of Jaws 2 and Silent Running, and they're weak. They're really weak. Black Hole come out the same year by Disney. Now, look at the strength of that film and the budget that Disney had. And look at the motion picture, which is 10 times the film. The color palette isn't great. The sets are very beige. What I do like about it is the homage to the new Enterprise. And it was the first time we saw the Enterprise refit. And boy, did they give us a good look at it. Stanley Kubrick's 2001 had just been a massive success. And I think the studios thought that that's what people wanted to see from a sci-fi film.
Actually, 2001: Space Odyssey came out quite a bit before this, but it wasn't actually a huge success at the time. It was only afterwards it became a success.
Yeah. And it was when I think Paramount was ransacking their intellectual property list because Star Wars had just taken off and the merchandising was making millions and millions of dollars. And they said, have we got something like this? Surely we've got something like this. When they were handing out the check to make this film, what they were expecting was dudes in velour shirts, brightly coloured, doing that thing. And when they got the film that they got, I think they freaked out a little bit. They did. There's a couple of scenes in it that I quite like, and it's the Klingons coming into the cloud in formation, and then they get nailed. And that's a really great scene. And if you see anyone that's kind of redone it on YouTube in like 1080p, and they've improved the quality, I think that's got, if they was to shoot that now with today, it was ahead of its time. If they were to shoot that now with the effects they've got now, it'd be brilliant. Also, that thing with the pro blazer on the bridge, when that cuts out, it's like, ugh. There is, I actually, every time I watch that film, I feel like, oh, what was that? That noise, that light and that noise is so much for so long that when it cuts out, you're like, oh, wow. And I've never had that from any other film. I've never had that kind of sensory overload from any other film that when it stopped, I'm like, wow. It was like turning off a cold fan in the face. It was brilliant. The next film that I like after that is The Undiscovered Country. That's when the classic Star Trek movies with the classic crew, they became polished. The effects were there, the music was there, the storyline was there, the acting was there. It wasn't like a caricature of the franchise. Everyone was taking it seriously. If you've ever had a beef with someone and you kind of bury the hatchet and there's unfinished business there and you haven't quite dealt with it yet, that dinner that they have on the Enterprise, you know what I mean? Where now's the time. I'm going to have to say that I don't care what the consequences are. I'm going to say it. And there's a lot of aggression in there. I've seen it happen and it's happened to me. And the exchange between the General and McCoy, where he's like, this is the end of our race. Well, that's not true. No. that was real. That was really, and I felt that, and I felt the moment, and it was well acted. And then as that was diffused by everyone trying to be polite and the blatant racism of, like sneering at the Klingons and the way they're eating and all that lot, out of that comes this Kirk-Chang standoff. And there is no, in the transporter room, before the Chancellor bangs his tusk to call the general in, they are literally facing each other off, face to face. Now, Chang knows that Kirk has basically beat a Klingon to death on the Genesis planet, and he was no one's fool. He was no one to be trifled with. That was a big bastard Klingon, and Kirk beat him to death, basically. So Chang was looking at him like, I'd love to have a go at you, man. I just would. And Kirk's looking at him like, come at me, bro. And that is just brilliant. Brilliant. The effects and no standoffs and that villain and the Shakespearean business, I just love that film from start to finish. Again, it was mentioned on a previous video, the psychological rape that goes on, where Spock basically, against someone's will, invades their mind with an invasive mind meld to the point where everyone's shifting in their seat going, Jesus, that's a bit much, bro. I suppose there was a lot of questions answered in that film as well, like what it means to be Vulcan and this whole Vulcan thing, like Spock blatantly lying throughout the film as well. And you lied. I made an error. You lied. It was an omission. Over and over again, he's lying. And I think the exploration of what it means to be human is made in that film, better than any other film that Star Trek put out. After Star Trek 6 is Star Trek 2. The Wrath of Khan. But that's probably the most talked about film that Star Trek's ever made. Everyone loves to love it. It's the introduction of the Monster Maroon, the uniforms, the ship designs for other ships. And then that brings in a very high benchmark of villains. And then that brings in Khan. And he's relentless and he's savage. And as villains go, pretty good. After that, the search for Spock. Now, the reason being, I know everyone thinks it's pretty plain, but again, they have to do better with the villain. And out comes this Commander Cruz, played by Christopher Lloyd, who's a bastard. And absolutely, he kills his girlfriend in the first scene, ruthlessly. And you think, right, okay, this guy's worse than Khan. And he doesn't let up all the way through the film. He doesn't give up. And I like the film. I do like the film. I like the way it basically carries on that arc. So 2, 3, and 4 are basically a whole arc. And then after the search for Spock, I would say Generations before First Contact for me. I thought the whole Nexus thing was pretty weak, but I liked having Kirk and Picard on the same screen. It needed to happen at some point. There needed to be a story to hand that torch on. And it was a big moment in Star Trek. I was around for that. I saw it at the cinema. I was around to get all the merchandise. I've still got some of the magazines and shite lying around here. Everything you went near at the time, from Weetabix to Pizza Hut, was Star Trek because of Generations. It reminds me of that time. So there's a bit of nostalgia there for Generations. First Contact came along. First Contact was great. It really was. It was an all-round, smooth, well-packaged movie. It ticked all the boxes. I like the fact that LeVar Burton no longer had to wear the visor. And I think that the Next Gen cast at that point in time had reached the point where I had met the original series cast in the movies. Do you know what I mean? They'd matured into that well-rounded crew of friends. And I enjoyed watching that film. Insurrection and Nemesis come further down for me at the same. They're kind of the same level. Pick one. I'd say Insurrection maybe a bit better than Nemesis. Tom Hardy is a powerful bit of action resource. Even though he was a pup in the film, he was very young. I still think it was weak. And then you've got J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams used Star Trek as a vehicle to get to Star Wars, is what he did. And he shafted my favorite franchise. Star Trek Beyond was basically Triple X, but with a Star Trek theme. So they beat the enemy with a motorbike and rock music, right? That's what they did. And I was watching it thinking, I was grinding my teeth watching it. I nearly hurled my drink at the screen in the cinema. I was just disgusted. I was absolutely disgusted with, Kirk on a motorbike and this rock music thing that makes the aliens explode. And I was like, no, this is shit. Into Darkness was really miscast. Everyone in there didn't really play a good role. They explored this situation between Spock and Uhura that didn't make any sense to me. And I think Dominic Cumberbatch, Dominic Cumberbund, that's it, Dominic Cumberbund, whatever it is. I think he was the most miscast, unbelievable, shit screen presence villain I've ever seen. Do you know what I mean? It was like having the man from Del Monte matched up against Bond. It just didn't work for me. I forget the name of the guy. He was in No Country for Old Men, and he was a Bond villain as well.
Javier M.
Yeah, Javier Bardem. Yeah, he should have been Khan. He should. I don't know what his price would have been. It would have been worth it.
Patches, have you heard that in one of our previous Shuttlebay 4 things, or was it you said it?
It's me that said it.
It was either I'd say because I know the argument's because I remember when I heard it thinking, actually, yeah, that will be perfect casting because he's got that weird. You're not quite sure how to take him. It's almost like he exists in a slightly different plane of existence when he's talking, and I like that.
Yeah,
you know,
you don't know if he's being serious, if he's being menacing, or if he's taking the piss, or all three. For me, those three J.J. Abrams films are shit. The Enterprise is shit, looks shit. The Bridge looks shit. It was myth-cast, and it got to the silly stage where it was, like I say, Triple X, but with a Star Trek theme. So that's it. Like, you know that weird head thing, the Spock toy with the light on it, and they just put a Star Trek sticker on it and said, "This is Star Trek now." That's basically the JJ films for me. It's just a shit film with a Star Trek sticker on it.
I used to have one.
So, yeah, those are my films. I think I got them all. I think there's a special mention from me for Galaxy Quest, which is the Trekkies Trek movie, really.
I agree with pretty much everything you said as well, because I made a few notes. You made a couple of points that I really like. When you talk about Undiscovered Country, you say it explores humanity, and that is ultimately what Trek is about. It's not about exploring strange new worlds. It's about exploring humanity, and I think that's what.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Undiscovered Country did that. The only thing I disagree with. Oh, by the way, the helmet thing you mentioned. Sticking a Star Trek logo on it, using that as an analogy for the J.J. Abrams films. I thought it was genius, and I'll be using that because I thought it was really good, and it made me laugh. The only thing I disagree with is in not Undiscovered Country, in First Contact, I was disappointed to see LeVar Burton without the visor. I was like, first we had Data with emotions, cracking shit jokes. Now we've got Geordi with his bloody visor off.
I don't know why they feel the need to just hammer blow and kill the best parts of Star Trek. You know what I mean? And just like destroy Data, destroy the Enterprise, destroy Kirk, just kill them. Just kill them. We've had enough of them, just kill them. When clearly it's what people want to see. Yeah. And if you look at Picard season 3,
every single one of those things came back.
Yeah,
every single one.
Yeah, and then it becomes a bit of a caricature of Star Trek. Like, soon as something dies, except Tasha Yar, but who also came back as a Romulan sister or something, you just think, when they go to write something out, surely someone should say, "Are we absolutely sure?" Because we don't want to have to write this back in.
Data died twice, and he's still come back. I mean, how many times you got to kill that fella off?
Yeah, I was screaming at Taylor, like, I was here for that. I did see it. He didn't need to do it again. But yeah, do you know what?
Did you not know that Data's surname is McLeod?
Do you know you're on about sci-fi films in 1979? There were a couple of bangers that came out. We had Alien and Superman. Don't you give me that face. Don't give me that face because I've just said sci-fi.
The Richard Donner Superman.
The Richard Donner original Superman, 1979.
That's not sci-fi, is it?
Listen, right, I'm going to run this by you. He's an alien who comes to this planet and he has superpowers. He's an alien whose home planet explodes, and he comes here on an alien transport vessel thing.
Patches, back up, man. Back up, Patches. Back up.
I'm out. That's sci-fi.
Yeah, but if you look at the canon of Superman, he is up there. So I'm not a novice with this whole Superman thing. You want to get into? Let's go off topic, right? Let's go. You want to geek out with me, baby? Let's do it. What is Superman's only weakness? You can put the hood up if you like. Superman's only weakness, apart from kryptonite, is he's impervious to almost anything except magic.
Well, magic. All right. Okay.
Right. So that's not sci-fi. That's fantasy, isn't it?
All right.
Because magic. Yeah.
But I just feel that at this point we probably ought to look at the homework that we had in terms of. I can't remember what it was now. Oh yeah, it was. What's the name of the episode?
Flashback.
And
Flashback. Yeah.
the good thing is, at least the topic of conversation is a light-hearted one. We'll probably get through quite quickly, which is shit hair in Star Trek. But, and we'll do that last. I reckon we ought to do Flashback now. I don't know if everybody's watched it. Has everybody watched it?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I'll volunteer to go first. I haven't got that many notes on it. I actually watching this episode. Cause I watched this episode first time ages ago, obviously, and I thought it was an amazing episode. Blew me away. Just the linking with the film just was. To be honest, I thought was amazing, and seeing Sulu was just amazing. And I must have seen it since then, because I've done a rewatch of Voyager. So this is the third time I watched it, and I was quite surprised that I actually wasn't that blown away by it this time. I thought it's all right, but it's not that great. So I'm going to focus on the positive bits first. I love Tuvok's takedown of Neelix's cocktails at the beginning, and then when Neelix is making him an omelette and he's talking about all the ingredients and that, and Tuvok says, and I've got the quote here, "I would prefer not to hear the life history of my breakfast." And I thought that's a great line there. But in this episode, you had several actors all vying for best line. You had Tuvok, EMH comes in, I think the scene after that one, or a couple of scenes after it, and EMH is always going to deliver some amazing lines, and he did. And then you had Janeway later on saying, "Oh, you never brought me tea, or you never brought me coffee, whatever." Yeah, you never brought me tea, which I thought was a really good line. So there were some great bits in the episode. I love seeing Sulu. I think Kez looks amazing in this. He looks like Tinkerbell. I know we're going to talk about hair later on, but I always thought Kez's hair was a bit dodgy, but it looked great in this episode. But Monster Maroon, any Star Trek where you see Monster Maroon, I'm going to be happy. I've got a couple of negative things, though, to say about the episode. When the credits came on, it said Grace Lee Whitney. I was like, oh, yeah, I didn't. It sounds about. I completely forgot that Grace Lee Whitney was in this. And then when you see her on screen, I'm not sure whether she's meant to be like just being a bit playful with Tuvok, but she actually comes across as a bit of a dick. And that hurt me, because I was like, oh, and because I do feel that Grace Lee Whitney as an actress was not treated very well by Star Trek, full stop. And I was a bit disappointed to see that she wasn't particularly likable. And then Sulu was a bit of a dick as well to Tuvok. When he was talking about the fact that they're all breaking the rules and everything, and I just felt that if this had been Captain Kirk would have been like, "This is what we're going to do. This is on me." He says, "If you don't want to be any part of this, then that's absolutely fine. This is on me." Whereas it was just like, I don't know, it was just a bit too sanctimonious, and I just felt that the way he treated Tuvok was almost like bullying, to be honest, and I wasn't very comfortable with that.
But with that, Dan, like Tuvok was just a couple of months out of training school, so it was a bit that's him.
Starfleet Academy.
But that's all the more reason to be like, listen, I know you're not happy with this, but it wasn't. He almost like he made an example of him in front of everyone and dressed him down, and I just, I felt it could have been handled better.
Savick done that in I think it was The Wrath of Khan, and I think Spock spun around and went, "Right, don't talk to the captain that way." Yeah, and Spock actually did it when Kirk was like, "Who the fuck are you?" And Spock went, "Whoa, no, don't talk to the captain that way." And I think later on in the film, Kirk said, "Yeah, you carry on quoting rules and regs, because I just got my ass handed to me there because I didn't listen to you." So Sulu was there for that.
Yeah.
So maybe that was a lesson that he didn't pick up, where he was dressing him down, and because he didn't follow the rules and regs, he almost cost the whole ship and the crew their life. So I think Sulu should have remembered that, but.
It wasn't the best way I can describe Sulu in that moment. It wasn't very charismatic. It felt like there was a way you could have got the same message across and come across as quite cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That didn't happen. What else have we got? I'm just trying to think what negative stuff I've got. I'm actually not going to say much about this episode. I'm kind of going to blast through, actually. I felt the ending was really rushed, because at the end, it kind of just ends. And I thought the whole resolution of it was a bit poor, because it felt like it was building up to something really good. It's like, oh, is that all it is? And then right at the end, there's a bit where Janeway's on about the fact that she's reflecting on, it would have been great to maybe have been around in those days and, be on the ship with Kirk or whatever. And by the way, I loved hearing references to Captain Kirk in the episode. It gave me that Trek tingle hearing that. And then Tuvok says to her, maybe you can feel nostalgic for the both of us. And it felt like you needed a real killer line at the end of it. And it was just like, oh, is that it? It just felt like that it just needed a slight rewrite. Personally, I felt like I think an alternate line for that, a better line would have been if you just said to her, I'll tell you what, just focus on getting us home. I felt that would have been a better line. I did notice that when they go onto the Excelsior, which I was like, oh wow, they're on the Excelsior. When I paused it at that stage, and I think it was about 21 minutes in, something like that, and I'm like, this is literally halfway through the episode. And when from that point onwards, where they're on the Excelsior, that should have been the bit after the credits. The whole credit sequence should have been, oh, Tuvok, I'm feeling a bit woozy, blah 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 blah. Sort all that out, do the mind meld, and then. After the credits, then you're on Excelsior, right? It shouldn't have been 20 minutes in, but I did read afterwards that Nichelle Nichols she was written into this, but she refused to play the part because she said, "You're not really doing anything with my character. It's just a bit crap." So they got rid of that. So all that stuff at the beginning with Neelix and everything was written after. It was literally written to be padding, just to fill out the episode. Once you kind of strip away the magic of seeing all this stuff, like the Excelsior and Sulu, once you strip that away, it just felt like it never quite hit the mark. This felt like the first draft, or it felt like there was another. It felt like it wasn't like the finalized script. It felt like it could have been tweaked and it could have been absolutely amazing. But I didn't get that. So that's all I've got to say this episode.
The one thing again that I've always noticed with the series, when you saw the Excelsior in the films, it looked huge, it looked chunky, it looked wide, it just looked really on-screen presence. But whenever you see it in the series, it looks narrow, it looks too long, it just looks shit.
If I was to say the Excelsior has a big chest, do you know what I mean by that?
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
It just looks like a Lamborghini, it's too wide for the roads.
Yeah. It's just got that pigeon chest, like the deflector disc tucked in there somewhere, but it's just, it's the bulldog. It is.
Absolutely, yeah. But when you see it in the films, it's a lot more narrow. It looks bloody stupid.
Yeah.
So there was that. Now, considering Vulcans pride themselves on really hiding those emotions, when Neelix was cooking the scrambled eggs and he was taking a pinch of this and a pinch of that, and then it shot back to Tuvok, and I have never seen anybody that can hide their emotions so well to give off such a, oh, for f***'s sake, look. It was just absolutely, honestly, watch it back. He just, after he's pinching them bits in, it's just like, brilliant. When he first had that flashback of the girl on the ledge falling, and he was going back to his quarters, and he was stumbling sort of along the corridors, pretty much falling over. I'm like, I can relate, mate. That's me on a Friday night trying to get home. So I could totally home in with that.
What, having flashbacks of little girls, or the
conversation's over?
Sorry, right. Just the way you went, I can totally relate. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, what do you get up to?
Yeah, no, I meant more the stumbling rather than the thinking.
Oh, right.
When the doctor puts the monitor just under his ear, and they have a little conversation just as he puts it on there, and he says, and it'll also alert sickbay. They are that close. You thought, literally, if they go, they're going to be kissing. That's how close they are. It's just like, whoa, back up.
Oh. Actually, can you see another thing they put on his neck as well? One thing I did think at the time was it's massive. I mean, it's not really massive,
huge.
But in the future, when I'm sure I've seen smaller devices do far more impressive things, and then Kez goes to check him, and think surely that would remotely just track him. But I suppose that might just be Kez going to see how he is, and that was just used as an excuse. But I did think when they put that thing on his neck, that is pretty massive, considering the technology.
bolt this onto the side of your head. And he goes, yeah, thanks. That's a great idea. Where everyone else would have been like, what? No.
It looked
So, I
like
mean,
he'd been assimilated by the Borg. That's how big.
And the only other thing I can remember, the only other takeaway bit is Tuvok just being a kiss ass. Oh, I've got your tea, sir. It's tea. And the other thing I picked up about that is, and it's probably just me, but as far as I can think of, I can never remember another captain having a drink on the bridge.
Yeah, no, Kirk does.
Does he?
Yeah, Kirk does. When I can't remember which episode, which series and episode it is, but you know when they go to that, they receive a distress call, and it's this video on repeat, and they get to the planet and the people are no longer there, and all they can hear is this buzzing, and they speed people up. He's
I remember.
drinking coffee on the bridge.
Okay, I don't remember. I do remember the episode.
What they do, they put a couple of drops of whatever in his coffee while he's sitting on the bridge, and he drinks it, and then everybody around him slows down and he vanishes.
Something I was impressed with this episode as well is the fact that they could have easily just shot most of the stuff they did, taken it from the film and just injected it into the episode, but they didn't. They actually got in all of the characters that were on that bridge on that film, and they reshot it all again. And I was quite impressed by that, the fact that they've taken the time and the effort to get all those people back and to say, right, we're going to do it again. The acting wasn't as good, even from George Takei compared to the film, the way he delivered those lines. Like when the wave comes towards the ship and he goes, shields, shields. It was a lot more prominent in the film than what it was in the episode. I don't know if it was just me, but in the film, he looked older than what he did in this episode. And clearly, he had some Just for Men rinsed around his ear.
You look so natural, no one can tell. Just for Men.
I mean, for continuity, his hair was slightly longer. His jacket was slightly longer. It was probably the same jacket, but in the 5 years, he'd probably lost a bit of ham. But he's a good sport. He came back and he did it. And I rate him for that. I do.
Hi, Marie.
Yeah, but no, just for me, obviously because I'm a mental health nurse, I found the whole story relating about mental health and Tuvok's mental health, because it's sort of like a PTSD episode, even though it's not his episode, it's somebody else's. But the whole element of Janeway being his therapist in a sense, guiding him through all the pathways of all the danger and the worry and that anxiety. So I saw it from that point of view. I thought it was quite good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I mean, I suppose it's different perspective. I think if somebody's gone through something like PTSD, and maybe they would take something away from the episode there, it might really click into some people's personal experiences. Did you like CN Sulu then, and the I forgot the name of the ship, the Excelsior?
Excelsior.
Yeah, well, I liked the old school. I liked the comedy as well with the Doctor when he responded to Tuvok when he said, "You're not kidding," and I can't remember what Tuvok said.
Oh, I think they say something along the lines of, what could have caused it? It could have been it's almost like a joke about the fact that on Star Trek they're always encountering all sorts of like weird shit all the time. But yeah,
the Doctor says something like that. It's what a weird universe, and then floats off.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. But yeah, the EMH always gets the best lines. And if Brush was here now, you know what it'd say? He makes them up himself. What did you think to Rand on this then? Janice Rand, Grace Lee Whitney. Have I said her name right? It's Grace Lee Whitney, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought she was a bit tangly, wasn't she? A bit frozen, I think.
Yeah, I'm intrigued because I think you're quite good at reading people. Maybe it's, with what you do, obviously you deal with a lot of people. There's the way that she spoke to Tuvok. I think maybe it was meant to come across as she was just like ribbing him a bit, having a bit of a laugh. But it came across to me like she was actually just being a bit almost spiteful towards him.
Oh, yeah, because she, told him that he couldn't talk to Sulu in the way that he did, as if like she was the one who was in charge, but she wasn't. She's just an has-been who's there.
What Well, that's
I'm sensing you're not her biggest fan, Marie.
No, not in this episode. No.
No, he's got the kettle boiled and he's pouring tea for Sulu. I can't remember where he's at that stage, and that's when she has a go at him. What would have really made it for me is if at the end of it she just got, I'm only taking piss, mate. You're all right. I'm only having a laugh. But there was none of that. It was just really intense, and she didn't break that tension with a little laugh or I'm only kidding.
Because Star Trek 6 is one of my favourite films of all time, we revisit that blinding film in some manner in this episode. We get a view of the Excelsior Bridge. I love the 23rd century bridge, the uniforms, the look and feel, the L cars. Yeah. So the way all the panels and instrumentations are set out, it's unique, and it is a character in its own right. And as Chris said, the Excelsior as a ship is a character in its own right. It's a beefy, stocky warship of the Federation. And I could see a difference between the rehashed footage that they use from the film, which is where the wave hits the ship and then it comes out the other side, which I always thought that when the wave passed and the ship just kind of steadily comes out, I always thought the ship was going to come spiraling out of that wave, but it doesn't. It just goes, right, okay, wave finished. I liked going back to that scene. The teacup breaking, that's Tuvok's tea that we find out. You know, in the movie, we see the teacup splashing on the deck of the bridge, like, oh, something's going on. That's Tuvok's tea, so they've injected that in there. I like the way Sulu says, steer the ship into the wave, because what was Sulu before he was captain and he was the helmsman?
Yeah,
and he's screaming at the bloke like, we're in an energy wave. This is how I do this. You know, just steer it into the wave, son. And his experience comes out there.
See, I'd like to think at that point the deflector dish would have had something to do with it, because obviously if you're pointing the nose into the wave, the deflector's going to be doing more of a good job just trying to disperse it.
And he shows his experience in trying to get the ship steered round into that. It's a pretty standard episode, but it's got great visuals because of the old ship, because of the Excelsior, the old uniforms, because of the rehashed footage from the film as well, that energy wave. I remember seeing that at the cinema, that pink purple energy wave. That was blinding. Everything was going all right for me until there's two things that stick. Janeway manifesting herself in Tuvok's mind, and everyone going, "Who's this woman?" Like, yeah, that didn't really work for me. The fact that her uniform that she took was ill-fitting and looked ridiculous when she's floating around the...
Yeah,
like,
I just borrowed a dad's suit.
The thing is, I actually liked that, because why would it fit?
No,
yeah, but
I thought the same.
So that I
clearly.
actually liked that.
It didn't fit, but the fact that her legs were so flared and the jacket was so big,
yeah.
If I was her, I'd have been like, nah. But and if I was on that bridge...
See, that's always pissed me off about films. When you get films, you know, they get spy films, and they'll go to a big swash party, and they'll grab hold of a waiter, and they'll knock him out and take his thing, and it fits like a glove.
Yeah, so, and it'll be Arnold Schwarzenegger putting on a waiter's suit, and it's going to fit perfectly, even though he's massive. Yeah.
The only time I can remember where that didn't happen, where it didn't work properly, was Die Hard. With the shoes, every time he knocked someone out to get a pair of shoes, they didn't fit.
Yeah. The other thing that I didn't get is, like, I was kind of, maybe it was a double bluff, like a red herring thing, but I thought there was a creature inside the nebula doing this to Tuvok's head. And they kind of spent a lot of time exploring this nebula, and is it this and is it that? And visually it looks exactly the same, and it looks like the same nebula. And then all of a sudden it's, yeah, but that don't matter now, because it's the virus.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, does the virus live in the nebula? No, it come from that dude on the bridge.
So so he's been living with that for 80 years without no problems.
Yeah, no problems at all. And the fact that this nebula's got nothing to do with it. He just, that could have hit him at any moment, but it just hit him then. And he started shaking on the bridge, and I thought, no, that's like, what about the nebula? It's always the nebula. There's always a creature in the nebula. No, not this time. No.
It's always the nebula.
every rehash of Star Trek that has been done so far, JJ, Strange New Worlds, Discovery, they always seem to go back to the original series. Spock, Kirk, the Enterprise, always there. How would you guys think if they started to rehash TNG?
Rehash in what way? Like recast and everything?
Well, like if they did another, if they recasted it, like JJ
No.
did with the original series, if they recast.
I think that's one of the reasons why Lower Decks is so popular as well, because it's what a lot of fans always said that. I mean, I can't talk for all fans, but I mean, when I spoke to the Star Trek fans, when there was going to be talk of a new series of Star Trek, everybody I spoke to wanted a series that was basically set like a few years after, say, Voyager or that era.
Yeah.
So it kind of felt like, so if you were to get some cast members that were in Voyager or TNG or Deep Space Nine, they would have kind of like be that right kind of age and everything, just let's say like 15, 20 years later, something like that. And that way you're within touching distance of what you've seen. So you're kind of still within that universe. You don't need to remake it and recast Geordi and Picard and everything, because it's a big universe. There are other characters out there with stories, and whatever stories you tell with those characters, you could tell with other characters in a slightly different way. So I don't want to see it recast, and it is one of those worries I've got. I don't think it would ever happen, actually. I don't think they would ever recast a big film and recast the Star Trek, because I could say they're iconic, but the truth is Shatner was iconic as Kirk, and the recast all that. But because the others are still around, I know Shatner's around, but I mean, the actual TV series is still quite fresh. I mean, they've literally just made a new Picard series. Then hopefully that won't happen. I say hopefully, maybe other people really want that to happen, but I certainly, I'd love to see more Star Trek films in particular. I'd love to see, and I've already said I'd love to see them do Strange New Worlds, or just have a shit we've never heard of before, set something completely different. I know that's what kind of, maybe Section 31 will be a success. Maybe Section 31, if they do it as a film, if that is happening, could be an amazing film that really does explore humanity, like we said before, and brings out the best of Trek. I can't see it. It's not something I want, but maybe it will. Let's see.
I'd like to see a situation with Rogue One and Solo, a Star Wars story. They've got a massive universe there, and they're letting some writers and some directors take a stab at it. They could do that with Star Trek. There's a whole universe built there. There's millions of stories to be told, and it could be space station stories. It could be all kinds of different stories. It doesn't have to be the Enterprise. It doesn't have to be that, that situation. There's cinematically, you could go there with Star Trek, and you could do a war film or a Klingon film or whatever. And you could, there's room there to do a few. And
you say with canon, you've got, we know what's before, we know what's after, we got that very small window.
Yeah.
But it's only a very small window if you're going to Deep Space Nine, if you're going to be going to the Enterprise, if you're going to, Voyager, whatever. But if you're a brand new ship on your own brand new adventures, it could still be within that timeline. It's still going to open it out. You just don't mention it.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
It's like, it makes it logically makes sense.
I get it. Everybody likes the cameos. I get it. But everybody says, I want to see something new that I've never seen in Star Trek. If you keep bringing in those cameos, you're never going to get anything new. You're just going to be going to referencing the old.
You said, Patches, it's quite it's quite a closed shop, Star Trek, and in a way, I'm quite happy for it to be a closed shop. And to be honest, I would much rather have a few really good series than have what we've got with like Star Wars, where there's so much of it. And balls will get dropped. And I think Discovery was a drop ball, to be honest. Like for example, I watched the Obi-Wan series. Obi-Wan's my favorite. Teams has got this thing where if I do that, it shows a thumbs up. Also, it does this, by the way. I don't know if you can see this. Wait there, see if it does it. Come on. It's not doing it now. Do it. It did it the other day when I was on a Teams meeting at work, and I didn't even know I'd done it. That does something as well. It's not doing it now. Oh, there we go. But balloons. Yeah. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I don't mind it being a closed shop if what we get is quality, right? And I don't want it to be. And I was a bit concerned when they were making series like this, series about that, series about.
You didn't like Obi-Wan?
I thought Obi-Wan was shit. It really annoyed me.
Really?
It really annoyed me. There's that bit where it's like there were so many times I could have got him. It's like, no, he's just flown off on that ship. And I'm sure there was another scene where somebody like went, used the force and brought a ship back. But I thought Obi-Wan was rubbish. I did. And I was ready, but what I was saying was, it's not to get spread out. In fact, this happened. The same thing. I remember being on the internet. It must have been in the mid '90s, late '90s, saying the same thing because you had Next Generation, then you had Deep Space Nine, and then you had Voyager. So you had Deep Space Nine and Voyager at the same time as the Generation films, and you had roughly the same kind of like talent behind it all, spread so thin. And then you had Enterprise come out, and it felt like it did suffer. If you bring a shit ton out, you're just going to dilute it, and it also makes it more difficult for people to come into it. Because let's say I never watched Star Trek before, so where do I start? Well, there's this series, there's that series, that series, there's this film, there's that film, there's that film, and then these other films done by somebody else that's set in an alternate timeline where they recast it. I'd be like, do you know what? I'm just going to pick something. I'm going to watch, I don't know, Stargate. There's less of it. It just feels like it becomes impenetrable then. You know, if there's just too much of it. And I
think 3 times the amount of Strange New Worlds would be worth much more than Disco, Strange New Worlds, and whatever the else they were doing. Not stretched out the episodes, but just give us more of that.
I don't even mind it being 10 episodes because there's so much Trek. It's not like, oh, this is it. I'll go back and I'll watch some other stuff. And I'm happy for over the years for the whole compendium of Star Trek to expand rather than just go poof with a shit ton of series. Maybe not all of them being particularly great.
I don't think I could do 20 odd episodes of Discovery because the stories just aren't there.
Like spot on. Absolutely spot on. I like him. I do like him. He's a very, very good actor, and he's not playing Leonard Nimoy. He's playing Spock, and he's doing it well. But Kirk's just, I don't know. They just really missed it. They just missed it.
I think it's tricky to cast Kirk, though, because there's something so iconic about him. And there is something really magnetic about Shatner as Kirk. And people slag him off. And he's almost become a joke, to be honest, as Shatner as Kirk. But, well, he has become a joke. There's no almost about it. You know, there's so many caricatures and all sorts. Yeah. But when you watch him, especially when you watch him do a really good Kirk scene, there is something really quite magnetic about him. And you're like, this guy is just, I can't keep my eyes off the screen. He is.
I'll tell you what,
it's difficult.
A couple of weeks ago, I actually sat down and I watched The Final Frontier. And I haven't watched that film in a while because I remember it was just that bad. I just didn't want to see it again. But I sat down and watched it. And I remember kind of thinking at the end of it, I think the only thing that made that film bearable was Shatner's the way he played Kirk.
Yeah. He probably made it that way, though.
He played a captain exactly how a captain should be.
Yeah.
And he just played that part really well throughout that whole film, and the only reason I could bear that film is because the acting of Captain Kirk.
Steve, if did you think it was shit? Did you?
Actually, you Patches. I didn't think it was that bad.
Hey.
I did have, unsurprisingly, some issues with it. I think a lot of the points have already been covered. I like the fact that it went back to the original. I found sort of almost the premise of the episode a bit tenuous. Really, a virus did that, and then when they got to the bit where they started seeing Janeway as being there, it was like, hang on a minute, this is a memory. A memory can only go one way. It's not. A memory isn't interactive. It's a recording of something in your mind that happened. So I thought that was.
Explain it in the episode, though, didn't they? He said, his memories are breaking down and he's starting to. I can't remember now, but I'm sure.
Still, but I would have thought
it is tenuous. It is tenuous.
They should have stuck to the Ghost of Christmas Past, and they should have had that whole thing of in the past, this is memories, you can't change them, this is it.
Yeah. I think the thing is if it was, I know they tried to address it with his whole mind is breaking down, but if his mind was breaking down, why would it continue with that memory? Why would you not end up with completely random memories intersecting with that, if that makes sense? It's like your mind's breaking down, but we're going to continue with the story, in that finite time that memory happened. And then for it to be a virus, it was just like, oh, okay. Because like you, Patches, when you saw Nebula, I thought, Because you remember that it was either an earlier or a later episode where that bird stops all the plasma in the nebula from blowing up, and she's there as the keeper. So you see the nebula, and at first I thought it was that, and that sort of threw me a little bit because I couldn't remember exactly what it was, and it was like, and like the little girl had nothing to do with it, which I get
literally nothing
at all. As far as the episode goes, it was an all right episode. It was what it was. It wasn't Enterprise, so that's a bonus. It wasn't Discovery, so again, it gets bumped up a bit higher.
What about you, Dee? Did you watch it?
Of course we did.
Is Jed with you?
Jed's working, unfortunately. He won't be finished till 10.
He's going to pick you up some COVID, hasn't he?
Bloody hope not. We did watch the episode. We watched it last night, so it was still fresh. Make sure it was all. And I just remember the opening scene, and I remember thinking when Neelix was making Tuvok's breakfast, where did he get his Ainsley Harriott chef set? Was it off eBay for $6.99 or something? You know what I mean? I was like, where'd you get one of them? I want one. They look great. I love that cat. But it started with the meal again, like we did at Carbon Creek the week before. I thought, did they like doing this? Just starting with a brew or with a drink or with a meal? There's so many episodes I've noticed start with sitting down and eating or drinking something.
Do you find you've never noticed that before until now? Whether it's just we've picked those episodes accidentally because we're all sitting here chatting until 9 o'clock at night and we're starving, and subconsciously we're thinking food. Pick an episode, or whether it's just out of the other 215 episodes of everything Star Trek ever made, we've just picked the 6 that have got food in them at the beginning.
It took me a while to get to grips with what was going on because, like you said, it looked like it was something to do with the nebula. It looked like it was going in that direction, and then it just started, just jumped into a completely different direction. And I'm like, what's going on here? But by that point, I'd already forgotten about it because I was so enamoured with the Zulu walking in and then the Excelsior and seeing Janice Rand. And then I was just like, oh, God, it's the film happening all over again. Yay. It was just, and I didn't know. I thought it was copy into the, you know what I mean? From the film into the, I didn't realise they dragged everybody back and reshot it scene for scene and because even Jed was going, my God, they've got it bang on here, look at it. It's like, pasted it, mate. He went, well, I don't think they have,
Do you think Janice ever sat there and looked at Sulu and went, you're no Kirk?
Like when he's doing the building blocks, when Kes come in and he's like, structure, logic, function, control, and I went, SLFC, sounds like a football club. I thought, well, the way he described it, it was just Lego blocks. Are you playing with Lego, mate?
It was just builder blocks, wasn't it?
It would have been good if the camera had zoomed out and it was one of those Playmobil Enterprises.
It was more like a tribute episode than an episode in its own right.
Yeah, well, this was the anniversary one, and it wasn't as good as the Deep Space Nine Tribbles one. That was, that was
epic.
That's very, very well done.
Let's do that one next.
Trials and Tribulations.
Yeah, where they go back and Dax is like, yeah, I love everything about this, and then she starts gushing over. We think it's Kirk, but it's not. It's Spock.
Yeah.
That's.
It's nothing like an episode with Dax with a boner to make you laugh, is there?
That is. Do you know what? That is just that. I thought that was really, really well done. Really well done.
Patches. Save it. We'll do that one next week if you want. We'll do that because that's the decision made then. I don't think it was a poor episode. It was just it was a typical Voyager episode. It was mediocre, and there was potential for it to be really amazing. In fact, you know what? If this, with a few rewrites and a bit more love given to it, this could have been a superb two-parter. Not just
that's what
25 minutes.
I thought this is going to be brilliant. Why have we not seen this one before? Why have we not talked about this one before? Yeah. And then it just sort of dribbled off.
But I have to, while we're on Voyager, the K's on fucking hairdo, right?
Oh, wait, can I just say, officially now, this brings on to worst. Worst hair. Yeah, that's my number one.
Yeah,
Kazon.
put it, yeah, because you
But
know.
it's
I-
going to
you
be
know what?
everyone's number one because it's gross.
It is
Yeah, he's
awful.
put that.
Who were those aliens? You know when Tom Paris was accused of murder and he had to keep reliving it? You had those people with the weird net things over their hair. Who were they? Do you remember? He was accused of murdering her husband.
Banians. Yeah, I'm looking at them now.
Yeah,
It's almost like feathers.
right.
It's really bizarre. But it all goes down the side of the hair.
Yeah, and it's just you look at them and you go, what do you do? I don't understand.
Where we're at, the Banians.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Banians.
yeah. Feather-headed freak.
The Banians are
That-
basically.
That's
Yeah.
it. That's a hairdo.
That is
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Makes no sense. It's
Yeah.
like the Jemadar. What's the point of putting it in a ponytail? Just cool there.
Yeah, but at least they look really cool. The Kazon have got the worst hair. I mean, the Kazon basically they were
They've
like
got
knockoff
shells in
shit
their
Klingons,
head.
weren't they? That's what they wanted to. We can't have Klingons, so we're going to do Kazon. It starts with a K, ends with an L, and that's honestly the Kazon were just shit Klingons, weren't they?
They're the Klingons you get if you buy them off Wish.
They
Do you know
are.
what I
Yeah,
mean?
they're one up from Packlid, didn't they? They are. They're just one up from
They are
Packlid.
one up from Packlad. Do you know
We are
what?
small.
I think the Packlad are one up from the Kazon.
Yeah.
I think it's not like they appeared in 1 or 2 episodes. They're just constantly cropping up.
And they're backward. They look rough. Their tech is junk. They pose no
Yeah.
threat. They're scavengers. And their hair is shit. And
Yeah, but
that's
the
it.
thing is, their tech is not even their tech.
No,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They got it off the what they call the Trabe. So
Yeah.
it's the Trabe's tech, which is like a fucking 100 years out of date as it is. Make up your mind. Do you know what I mean?
Come on.
Oh
That's
yeah,
got to be pretty bad.
Oh yeah.
Look at the hair. Just, look.
Yeah.
Look at it. That's so bad.
I've also got another contender for worst hair in Star
Go on.
Trek.
Oh, Jed showed me.
Oh, yeah.
Chekhov's wig.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
The wig was terrible.
Oh, it's so bad.
A hairstyle I really hated in Star Trek was Barclay's. It felt as though it was coming out. He had too much forehead going on. It's like, do you know what? It gets to the point where you just got to give up and you just got to shave it. I just wasn't a big fan of Barclay's.
Yeah, but could you
massive
imagine
comb
like
over.
a bald Barkley that just wouldn't have sat right? Oh, sounds like a dirty word. Oh yeah, I can't wait to get on your bald Barkley. Dirty girl.
I think it's quite obvious that Garak and Data have the same barber as well.
Oh,
Have you
it's like
noticed
straight
that?
back.
Yeah, just bang. And
Yeah.
also, it's the same barber as Odo almost.
Yeah.
Now, I don't get, right? So the backstory of Odo's hair is there was a Bajoran doctor that kind of poked and prodded him for years, and he copied his hair. Yet when they go to the Founders Planet, they've all got that. They've all got that. They've all got that.
Yeah, that was kind of. I remember watching it. That was kind of
That
retcon.
would make Odo feel better, wasn't it?
I know, but it's just, but they always look like that, and it's like, well, why did they pick that image? You know, to be honest, it's probably not even the easiest one. Some humanoid form with hair, which hair surely can't be the easiest thing to form. Why not just be like,
But then if you think
just a
about
blob?
it, we did see other changelings that were impersonating like the Romulans and stuff like that. So I think
they
their
nailed it.
was that they
Yeah.
looked like that to identify with Odo and to make him feel better, but clearly they were capable.
Do you know what? I think for me, if I were a changeling and all of a sudden I met a load of other changelings and they all look like me, it'd probably freak me out. It'd weird me out a bit. I'm like, hang on a minute.
That's questionable. That in
I don't mind Burnham's hair. She had some really cool like braids, whatever at one stage, whatever they're called. They were cool. Probably the worst hair in Star Trek is Riker without the beard.
A beard. Yeah, because the thing is when you sort of forget that he didn't have a beard. When you get into the later series, you forget. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, copy my man, wait,
Yeah. Cool.
Have you ever had? I think it's Wheato.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, wheat crunchy. That's a wheat crunchy hairdo.
Wheat crunches, that's it. Wheat crunches. It looks like wheat crunches. Janeway's bun for the first, was it series of 2? I thought it looked ridiculous. The minute they changed the hairstyle, she looked much. I don't know. She just presented much better as a character.
And Tuvok just had this over the top Vulcan fringe thing, but then he inherited that from previous iterations of Vulcans that he'd played. I think he was a Vulcan terrorist in DS9.
Jed's got Vulcan hairstyle as his second worst hairstyle in Star Trek because it's like infinite diversity and infinite combinations. Idic is their theology. It's their be-all and all, and yet there's only one haircut in the whole of Vulcan.
Yeah, that's.
Nobody's mentioned Neelix's hair, right? But I actually thought Neelix's hair looked quite cool.
Actually, I did mention Neelix's hair last week because you did turn around and say, because when we brought up the subject, and I said about Neelix, and you said you liked it, but his was more sort of fur and whiskers as opposed to sort of hair as such.
Do you know? Do you know what Neelix's hair looks like? Right. And I thought this the very first time I ever saw it, and I still think it now. I'm going to Google, and this particular person.
This is another picture of fucking Chekhov. You can jog on.
It's not. This is right. And let me find a good image. And this is Neelix's hair. Here we go. Oh, perfect. Peter Stringfellow. It's got Peter Stringfellow hair.
Yeah. That is.
Like Patchy said, it's always in the nebula.